Thank you. I want to start by thanking Creative Capital and all of you for being here and giving me the opportunity to show my work. I have been producing in the last couple of years a series of projects that look at the histories and developments of the sexual movements in the last 40 years, specifically from the perspective of wanting to revisit the idea of what it means to present oneself as a community that is equal to someone, as opposed to someone that embraces difference as perhaps a social opportunity to reaffirm different values in society. To that extent, I've done two large-scale projects in the past 3 years. One titled We Who Feel Differently, which was premiered and stayed for about 3.5 months at the New Museum last year, where I presented a series of interviews with 40 different people throughout the world around this, precisely the question of difference. And most recently, simultaneously to my Creative Capital project, this year I have been working on a project titled Nefandus, which looks at the sort of like the construction of the category sex from the perspective of pre-Hispanic cultures in Latin America. So it looks at the moment in which Spaniards and Portuguese come and impose the category of morality onto the native cultures. I will not be showing any of those two projects right now, but if you have any questions, I would be really happy to talk to you about that. Can you start the show? My Creative Capital project is titled Gender Talent, and it's an experimental and artistic documentary about ideas of gender self-determination, for which I have been traveling since last August throughout the world, interviewing a number of different activists and organizations that are dealing with questions that concern the communities of trans and intersex individuals. The project is eventually going to cover 7 different countries or 7 different cities in countries. Last winter, I spent a number of weeks in India in 5 different cities where I was documenting the work of primarily 4 activists. I can, for example, speak about Kiran, who is an activist that represents not only transgender communities in a district near Bangalore, but also disabled communities. And that is a point that the project wants to make very strongly. And it's thinking about a population or a community of folks that have been rendered not only invisible, but impossible by society's institutions. How these people have been forming a very strong movement, discourse, and a set of demands that challenge fundamentally and foundationally society's institutions. So in the case of Kiran, for example, what matters to him is not really the question of gender. What matters to him is the question of building bridges and aspects of moments of solidarity to create a politic that is inclusive of different social and discriminated minorities. This latter part of the slideshow presents the work that I did last August in Colombia, in the city of Cali, where I worked closely with an organization of transgender women run for and by transgender women, mostly that are coming out or are still working in sex work and sex trade. What I did is we spent about 3 weeks together interviewing every member of the group and trying to understand what are the demands that they are posing to society, a society that has oftentimes limited them to only work as sex workers or oftentimes as stylists. I suppose and this last part of the show is work that I have been doing here in the United States, where the project is focused on intersex activism. So, for example, David Strahan Cameron in San Francisco has been heavily advocating for deregulating the consent for intersex children whose genitals are mutilated at birth without really any medical necessity. So I suppose that the core question of the project is this idea of how can we challenge normative thinking around gender categories and the gender binary, which seems to regulate so much the way that we navigate the world. Just thinking about simple things, for example, as access to bathrooms. And I just noticed it today as I walked out of my room. There was a huge sign that Creative Capital put on the door that said men. And I said, maybe this is an opportunity for Creative Capital to rethink a bit its gender policy. Anyhow, so the project will be mostly a publication that will bring all of these perspectives together, for which I am looking for a publisher. So if anyone here is interested, I'm really happy to talk to you about it. And it will also be a video installation composed of 5 short films. So I'll be happy to share that with you. Lastly, I know that I'm running over time. There have been a series of events that I've been calling in-production events, like this one that happened, thanks to Stuart Kammer, who's in the audience, at Tate Modern last year, where we brought a group of academics to think about the limiting aspects of the gender binary and how to transcend that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carlos Motta.